You're listening to the Getting Social podcast, a keep it real type podcast where we discuss entrepreneurship, marketing, and all kinds of social topics. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Getting Social podcast. I am your host, Jeff Policard, and this is episode number 21. How do you think the world would be like if 1 billion of us volunteered just 1 hour per week to doing good? Think about that question. In this episode, I have the pleasure of interviewing the founder and CEO of ShareNest, Yosef Francisco Sigaud. Originally from Brazil, Yosef was lucky enough to get a scholarship to play tennis at Purdue University, where he got his engineering degree. He then went on to get his MBA at Barry University in Miami, Florida. He always dreamed of making big money and living that lavish lifestyle that so many of us pursue. Although he did achieve this dream, he soon realized how miserable he was inside. Life could not be about that, he said. He had it all, but was still not fulfilled. He decided to quit everything to go volunteer for a nonprofit for 8 months. This changed his life. He soon understood the power of giving back. When you are doing good for the world, you are also doing good for yourself, he added. When he realized how big the gap was between the world GDP and giving back, he felt he had to do something about it. That's when he built ShareNest, a platform that connects people that want to do good to nonprofit organizations. His mission is to foster more giving in the world. Without further ado, it's time to get social. All right, Yosef. Well, once again, thank you for joining us on the show today. This is a very exciting episode for me because of what you do. Social impact is something that we look for in every guest, and you are directly impacting the world and communities around the world. So it's a big pleasure for me to have you on the show. We'll go straight to it and ask you the first question, which is, what is ShareNest? And also some of the challenges that we are also maybe thinking that you might have had in developing ShareNest. So if you could share with us your journey and how you came about starting ShareNest.
Okay, Jeff, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you so much for giving me the space to talk a little bit about myself, the journey, and about ShareNest. It's very exciting always to try to add value in the world of social impact. So hopefully we can have an amazing conversation here to get yourself and the audience excited about doing good in the world. So a little bit about, I think, myself is actually a little bit about ShareNest. So I'll start with that. I'm originally from Brazil. I got a scholarship to play tennis, in the north. I went to university in Purdue in Fort Wayne. I started playing tennis there. Then I got my engineering degree there, and then I'm moving to a different campus of Purdue, but got an MBA here in Miami. Then I was working for, went to work for banks, went to work in the financial industry, really wanted to make the big bucks and walk next to, beautiful ladies. And realized that actually that world was not necessarily for me, and went to work for a school, became the director of a school very fast, helped the school become international, which is a sports academy in the north of Florida, actually the north of south of Florida. But it started actually making a lot of good money, having a nice car, good house, all the 1% things, but internally I was miserable. Absolutely miserable. And at the time, I actually got a postgrad certificate at Harvard Extension for sustainability innovation. And I said, you know what? Life cannot be about that. I'm making great money as a young guy, and I, have everything financially and, physical that I'm looking for, but I'm not fulfilled. What's going on? People told me you need to go to a psychologist, you need to look for help. I said, you know what? I'm quitting everything. I'm getting all my stuff, all the money that I have, and I'm going to volunteer for a nonprofit for 8 months. So I decided to move back to Miami, where I joined an organization called the Kabbalah Center, where I volunteered for 8 months, and that changed my life. Not only because I was able to get out of my, the depression and the tough moment that I was going through, but most important because I understood the power of giving back, which is when you're doing good for the world, you're actually doing good for yourself. And that's when the whole idea of ShareNest came about. Right, and I'll tell you a little bit what ShareNest is, but within that time, I said, "Oh my God, if giving is so good and is, for both sides of the equation, let me understand really how the world is in terms of doing good." And I was shocked. After a few months of research, I realized that we give back to the world a very, very little percentage of the total GDP of the world. And I said, wow, why? Why is that happening? If this is so good and so important, it saved my life. How can this be so, little as a community, as a society are doing it? And the answer that I got was two. One, there wasn't enough awareness of the power of giving back, of the power of sharing. And the other one, there wasn't a platform that was actually user-friendly for the needs of the millennials and this new Gen X and the new young generation. And I said, you know what? I'm going to build a technology. I'm going to build that company that is going to be that brand that is going to motivate people to do more good for the world. And we're going to have a technology behind it to facilitate all that. And that's actually ShareNest. Is a platform that connects people that want to do good with organizations or people around the world that need help.
I'm just amazed by the story, to be honest with you. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting, the phases before you actually started ShareNest, or even before you joined the first nonprofit and volunteered for 8 months. I was not expecting that story, so that makes it even more amazing to me. So sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
Yeah, for sure. No, so definitely, I always think it's important to share a little bit about the story because adds value to really what ShareNest is about. And I don't know if you saw the logo of ShareNest, but it's a nest with two eggs, right? And I truly believe that in our essence, the most added value that we have to the world is the giving actions that we do, the good deeds that we do for the world. And that's really what ShareNest is about. It's an ecosystem that we want to allow people to shine, to share their talents, to share their value to the world. So, story makes sense. The brand looks beautiful. Everything seemed on paper great. But then it comes, the beautiful challenges of business.
Yeah.
We need to actually bring it to what I like to call the physical world and execute, right, and manifest it. And I think that challenge number one was raising capital for the simple reason that people had a difficulty understanding why I was choosing to make ShareNest a for-profit versus a non-profit. And then they were obviously challenging me on how I'm going to make this, I'm going to make money out of this. Because now if you're for profit, I'm not making a donation for you. I want, an ROI. I want a return on my investment. I want to make sure that, I give you $10, you're going to give me at least 12, 13, 14, or 1,000 in a few months, right? Or a few years. And so to transmit this message to the investors, I think it was very challenging, and to convince them and to show it to them that the reason why we chose to be a for-profit was for the reasons of innovation and for the reasons of a flexibility that a for-profit can have, not only through raising more capital, but also through different flexibilities in terms of, how we can manage internally the organization. And then obviously second was how to convince about the revenue model, right? There was a revenue model that really made sense. So I think that those was the initial challenge. And once we passed through that, and thank God we passed through that with really nothing under our belt, just a PowerPoint presentation and, the passion of me behind it. And we were able to start executing. And then the second challenge came, which is a challenge we're still facing. I think now things are progressing and much better, but it's the challenge of founding something, or let's take it back, founding a technology company without tech experience. So founding a technology company without a tech co-founder and having to hire, technology companies or technology, freelancers, developers to build that for you. So we definitely went through multiple people, multiple struggles, because we never had somebody that actually was challenging us on the things that were not going to work in the future based on how much we wanted to really scale that. So we ended up building the technology initially. And as we got to a beta testing with almost 10,000 activities tracked, the technology collapsed. So we went back to the drawing board, found a new team, rebuilt the technology. And then as the technology is about to launch, the tech guy decided to leave the company. So now we have to rebuild the technology. And within that process, now we're basically coming live with the new technology in a few weeks. But, I think that there's a blessing and a curse in everything, right? And I think that the curse was obviously that this 2 years of a lot of expectation from us and from our partners and from our clients and all that of like, okay, the technology is going to come live. And the blessing was also the 2 years because we got to understand much more the market. We got to understand much more our, the needs of our customers and the needs of to fine tune our dream.
This is awesome. Like I said, I was not expecting all of that, and especially those challenges. And congratulations, you guys are rolling out a new technology. You said in 2 weeks, correct?
I would say, let's say 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah.
3 to 4 weeks. That's great, man. And it's an amazing thing to know that, not only are you trying to help, but you're going through these challenges in order for you to make the lives of other people better. And that's something that should be applauded. And I should thank you for that as being, obviously a citizen of the world myself. So obviously everybody benefits when you do good. Actually, I have some quotes that I read from your social media. I'm going to come back to those in a little bit, but they resonated with me, and I'm going to ask you also your perspective on them. But first, we spoke about the challenges so far in building your business in ShareNest. What are some of the resources that helped you along the way?
Yeah, so I definitely think that extremely important when you are building any type of business. Okay, if you are an entrepreneur and you're a first-time entrepreneur, I highly recommend you to unite yourself with your local community. So obviously I'm in Miami, so I was able to, Miami is one of the biggest, I think, tech communities in the country. I would say that behind San Francisco, New York, Boston, I would say Miami's coming along fairly well.
Atlanta is growing big too. Miami and Atlanta.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I definitely found myself joining more and networking more with, people on this and the industry. So, I went to different co-working offices where there were different events being held that were gathering the community. People could share best practices. People could share where you can find different types of resources in the community to help you out at a cheaper price. And and even mentors and leaders to guide you on the way. And one of the things that I did that I think was very, very beneficial was that I signed up to different accelerators and incubator programs that have helped me tremendously to fine tune and shape really the model and the ideas that I was actually manifesting it. So first one, actually, I signed up to an incubator program at Miami-Dade College. It's called the Center of Innovation, if I'm not mistaken. And within that program, I was actually able to win a competition within that incubator, and we got access to free classes and access to different type of leaders and mentors from the community, and obviously the recognition in the community. After that, I joined a online accelerator called New Chip, that they gave me an amazing discount because of the company that I was building, in order for me to go through the process of learning how to raise capital. And they really helped fine-tuning my pitch deck, fine-tuning how to have actually a business development strategy, even when in terms to raise capital. Because raising capital for entrepreneur, especially in the startup world initially, that's your main job, right? You're raising money, quite often. And if you don't have systems and processes for that, and you're just knocking on doors randomly, it can, become very time-consuming and inefficient. So they basically taught me how to make that process more efficient, and that was very helpful. And then after that, I was invited to be part of the WeWork Labs here in Miami. Now they closed down after everything that had happened with WeWork. But WeWork Labs was a side of WeWork that they were giving it offices at a discounted rate for top startups in the local community. And I got a few months there for free, so I was able to get very involved with the community. And obviously, nice. The leader of the whole lab was putting me in front of context of potential customers, potential partners, and all that. So that was a great network strategy for us. Then I think after that, we're able to start solidifying more strongly our team. So this is what we currently have. We have like almost 13 to 15 people working for us now in the team, and really do all the beta testing that we needed to do and sort of go through the process that I described to you.
Amazing, man. That's great. And that's something that you're saying here. It resonates with me a lot also, is connecting with your local community. A lot of people underestimate that. A lot of people try to go outside and in when it should be the other way around. You should be very, very solid from, a 1 mile radius. And then from there, you expand if you want to be that specific, and I agree with that 100%. I moved here to Miami about 17 years ago, and, I used to come here for vacation. Obviously, it's not the same thing, but coming here, especially from Haiti, but I had graduated from the Northeast, and coming down here, starting from scratch, one of the things that I quickly noticed is that, you have to start, building your relationships here and making sure that you are part of this community in order for people to know about you, to support you, and you to support them too, and create more opportunities, so that's a very smart move. And with WeWork and those networking events that I know that are happening all the time, I'm sure you were able to make some valuable connections. So that's great, man. My next question actually is going to be a little bit more about the model. Some things that you said earlier on, I didn't know about either, where it's a for-profit and you do charge. Can you tell us a little bit more about that process and how you're charging people and how it works, basically?
Yeah, absolutely. So, obviously our mission is to foster more giving in the world, right? Mm-hmm. To eventually, as I mentioned to you before, I definitely or I strongly believe that as an individual becomes a giver, mm-hmm. right, he not only doing a favor to the world, but to himself. And obviously the effect of that is a more social and emotionally connected person. So as our mission is to, foster more giving in the world, I think the vision is that eventually that will bring to a world of more social and emotionally connected people, right? So obviously we measure our success in terms of that. We don't measure our success in terms of finance. But I think that it becomes very clear that when you're talking about technology, right, and you're talking about innovation, and you're talking about the speed of how sometimes different sectors actually evolve, I think that the flexibility of being a for-profit business is extremely beneficial to allow us to achieve our mission, more effective, not only here, but in the future. Mm-hmm. I think that we need to be ahead of the game all the time. We're building a technology with a capability for artificial intelligence, right? We don't have the resources to bring artificial intelligence here today, mm-hmm. but, I don't think the model of a nonprofit for us now, initially depending on, donations, would be the best to potentially have a large amount of, investors coming on board and saying, you know what, we believe that you should be, the same way if you think about friends and family, go to Facebook. If you think about, videos, you go to YouTube. If you think about, messaging, go to WhatsApp. If you think about the nonprofit world, if you think about volunteering, we want people to think about ShareNest. And I think for that to happen, we need to have, a strong amount of resources behind us to support it, to leverage this fast growth and this space that I think the world is sort of changing today. So I think that that's the reason why we chose, to be a for-profit. And our model today is very simple. Our model is a membership, platform, which starts with a free access to, most of our resources and most of our technology. and then moves it to different tiers of that membership where you're paying for extra services. So now, obviously, our three main, customers today are, the corporate world, schools, and the nonprofits. And then we decided to do it. Go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, I'm pretty sure that's what we were going to say. I was going to ask, are they the ones that pay for the service, obviously?
Yeah. So obviously, on one side of the equation, you have volunteers, right? And on the other side, you have, either the organizations that need those volunteers or organizations that are managing volunteers, right? So like school corporations. So yes, the answer is yes. The organizations that are managing the volunteers are the ones that are paying the bills, right? So the way we currently actually structured is that we're trying to take away payments from the side of the equation that are generating more impact. So for nonprofits, they're really only paying if they want the top of the top of the top of the service, right? But most of it is actually free. And for the volunteers, it's always free. Now, for the corporations and for the schools that want to manage that data and want to maybe leverage the visibility of the data for marketing purposes or for, internal reasons or for training purpose of all that, that's when we, start charging a little more. But regardless, the first tier, it's always free. And we actually try to make sure that it's never attached to the number of impact or volunteer being generated, right? It's always about the extra services that we are offering for you to have, more clear visibility on that data, or for you to manage those, volunteers better, so forth, but not in the impact itself. So that's sort of the model that we're looking for the most. And by the way, the way we're building the technology, there's multiple horizontal and vertical models that we are still studying to identify. But I think we're trying to make sure that it stays aligned with our mission, and our mission is to foster more giving. So everything that would jeopardize that would, most likely be thrown to the garbage.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's great, man. And I definitely agree. And not only that, you'll be able to help more. That's the thing. You'll be able to dedicate more of your time. You'll be able to put more of your passion and your sweat into this thing, for the greater good. And like you say, to foster more change and create more impact. So I get it 100%. But now, in terms of the pairing and how it goes, tell us what you're looking for in terms of the organizations and also in terms of the volunteers. What are some of the characteristics that you look for both parties?
So in terms of the volunteers, I actually interviewed for our Instagram, we're doing like this live sessions that we used to call it like do good from home, like share good from home, something like that. And I interviewed a lady that she is the CEO of a nonprofit called Third Wave Volunteers. She's probably one of the biggest, front end or first responder volunteer in the world. She has an entourage, almost 30,000 volunteers that go with her. And I asked her the same question, and she responded to me that the most important thing, I believe what she responded to me was that the most important thing for a volunteer to have is passion, right? And just dedication to wanting to help. Everything else we can teach, but if you're not committed really to help out, there's nothing we can do. But if you have the will and you have the desire to help out, all the different, professional skills and all that will make it work. So I think that's extremely important. And obviously on our technology, I would say your skills are needed as well, because we do a lot of our volunteering online. Actually, in our platform, a lot of the matchmaking is actually talent-based. So we actually have 100 and, if I'm mistaken, 80 or 90 categories and subcategories of services that nonprofits can find from volunteers.
Wow.
Like, logo design, web developer, consultant, teaching different classes, writing skills, virtual system, you name it, right? So in our side, there is that side that I think talent is necessary, but obviously the passion and the desire are, the forefront of it, right? And on the nonprofit side, I think that for me, the most important thing is, I think, transparency, and to take care of volunteers as their most important asset, that they have in their hands. There are many times that unfortunately I have experienced nonprofits that take volunteers for granted. And that's not cool, because I really feel that nonprofits today, especially today, are pretty much run by volunteers, especially in today's world that, donations are, at some extent can become more scarce because of what's happening, globally. That the only thing that nonprofits are, can count on now, it's support of human effort. And I think that, extremely important to be transparent. First of all, what are you doing with your work, so that people feel more, excited and motivated and obviously open to work for you. But second, to really take care of the people, and just not treat them as numbers. I think that that's extremely important. And I would add to that I feel that, we developed a program called the Love and Care. The Love and Care, it's a volunteer engagement program, and it's amazing. I actually applied in the organization, the Kabbalah Center that I mentioned to you, and we actually had a 90% or more returning, like the rate of volunteers that stayed with us.
90%. Okay, wow.
90% where we manage actually 200 volunteers on the platform, and just in the local center here in Florida, and 90 to 95% of them actually decided to stay continuously working with us after 3 months because of this program that we implemented called Love and Care. Because it's very important for any organization, especially nonprofits, to understand that there's a big difference into managing employees and managing volunteers. Employees, there's an expectation. You don't deliver something, you know what? I can fire you at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. A volunteer, it's all about inspiring the volunteer. You can't just, if you fire the volunteer, okay, you're going to say, thank you very much, I go volunteer next door, right? So it's all about inspiration, taking care of them. Right? So that's why the three main missions of, the three main values of ShareNest are passion, collaboration, and engagement. Because if you don't have those three as a social impact organization, especially in the nonprofit world, it's very difficult to maintain a very strong team.
Well, I mean, this is making me think a little bit, and because just a couple of days ago, I was looking up Generation Z, and I'm sure also because of what you do, Generation Z is labeled as one of the most giving and caring generations that we've had, and they tend to give back the most. They also tend to volunteer the most. Is that something that you're also seeing on, basically if you take, all your volunteers into account, are you seeing a trend age-wise that they're very young?
Yeah, so for us, it's, I'm not sure how much I can answer this question because we are living in the world of education. So we're pretty much focused on high schools and in universities. So most of our, users are basically Gen X. Mm-hmm. But what I think it's extremely valuable to mention is that, yes, this generation, it's very for change. They really are, I think, craving to be the ambassadors of the change that they're looking for in the world, and they're pushing corporate America to become more social responsible and all that. But I do believe that overall, we as a society, and if the Gen X are the leading force of all of this, I think we need to do more. Okay, I think that the world needs a little extra push from all of us, especially in the times that we're facing right now. And one of the missions,
a big extra push.
Yes. One of the visions of ShareNest is that, to imagine a world where 1 billion people are actually volunteer at least an hour a week. And I want just you and the audience to reflect a little bit on this. And then how would you guys think the world would be if, we would have 1 billion people making an hour, giving away an hour of their time on a weekly basis, if their talent or just their time, to a nonprofit, to the local community, and I think for me, it's like just indescribable, really, how the world will look like. And I think we, as society, we're not there yet. And for that, then if the Gen X are the frontiers in this movement, I kind of ask them to push to the next level the amount of giving that they're doing it, so we can actually achieve that. Because I think with the human power, we can really change the world, and I strongly believe that volunteerism can change the world, and that's why ShareNest was built.
You are not only motivating me, but you are inspiring me, and I love that. And I love the example you gave, 1 billion. So basically, if we give 1 billion hours a week of our time, we could change the world, because that's a whole lot of hours. That's a whole lot of impact, and doing that as a whole, collectively, will definitely create change. And one of the things that you say on your website, and that's going to lead to my next question. You do say that giving back and fostering change and all that also helps with depression, which is part of your story, but you actually say that in some of the messaging, which I think is great. I never thought of it this way. To me, when I gave you the story earlier on about, giving back and going to that community in Haiti and seeing firsthand, what this organization was doing to help the children of Haiti, it changed my life. It changed my perspective, and it made me feel good about myself also. So it's not only a selfless act, it's also a selfish act, which is fine. It's okay, because it makes you feel good, so you're doing something to help other people feel great, but you're also making yourself feel good at the same time, which to me is something that is so therapeutic and also uplifting and could do so much good for the givers and the takers, and maybe encouraging the takers to give at some point of their lives and creating this cycle. So I'm going to end the question with this. This is something that I saw on your Instagram, and it's a quote from a personality, athlete, person that I admire a lot, and it's Muhammad Ali. And he says, as you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself and the other for helping others, which is kind of plays into what I just said. What does this quote mean to you in reference to what I just told you, in not only helping others and also helping yourself at the same time?
Yeah, so for us, that's what ShareNest is all about, right? I don't know if you saw our slogan, that it's you get what you share, right? So strongly believe that every action that you are doing is a good deed for the world. There's a double, right? It's an exponentialized benefit there, because it's both sides of the equation are being benefited. So obviously, I think that as we're moving towards a world that is requiring more and more people to have soft skills, right, which is the intangible skills that we can develop, I think that the inner understanding of who you are is extremely important. And one of the most powerful ways to know who you are is through actually serving yourself to the world, right? The more you add value to others, the more you start understanding who you are. And the more you understand who you are, the more excited you actually are to give. So obviously the two hands there are obviously that reasoning. And I know you mentioned about depression, and I wanted to add something to that, just as a call to every medical professional out there in the country and in the world, is that, my mom is a psychologist, right? And she obviously does an amazing work, as many other professionals, bringing, these people with sometimes a lot of trouble, and they try to ease their pain, either sometimes through medication if it's psychiatry, or sometimes, just through different counseling. And one of the things that I challenged my mom, and I said, Mom, what do you think that if you do part of what your service, that would be, in the volunteering world, motivating those people to find a purpose, to find a way that they can feel that they are meaningful to the world? Don't you think that your services will be like exponentialized? Imagine you're taking care of the person, that has some certain issues, and now you're giving them the space, and obviously with the safe environment for that person to be able to feel valued, for the person to be able to share. I think that could be an amazing practice, again, within the legal parameters of that and within safety, depending on the conditions of the person. But I strongly believe that could be maybe the final, the final push to help somebody come back, okay, from a depression or come back from a low mental moment in your life, and then going to, not value to feeling a lot of value, purpose, and an excitement to live again. I went through that. It changed my life. Honestly, it saved me, from the process of the darkness I was going through. So I'm a huge advocate for it. And I think that now more and more in the world, there's people going through that, because of the pandemic and the people losing jobs and people being stuck at home and all that. And I definitely believe that, you can add value, you can help from home. Just go on your computer. If you don't know anywhere to go, you can always sign up to ShareNest, and you can do many, many, things from home to feel that you are making a huge impact of organizations all over the world. So it's a little bit of my ask.
That's great, man. And I'm going to ask you a question. I don't think I've ever asked this question before, but there's so many things so many great things about what you're doing here. We actually always end our conversations with entrepreneurs and marketers and professionals with how they see themselves impacting the world. What can they do? Because I feel personally that as entrepreneurs, leaders of the community, professionals, that we have a duty, athletes, celebrities altogether, we have a duty outside of what we do on a daily basis to serve the world. I really do believe that, especially if you are influential, if you have that platform. I think it's basically a duty. I think that's what it comes with. A lot of the superhero movies, they say that sometimes, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think a lot of us are not necessarily approaching it this way, which is one of the reasons why I started with this podcast also, is to talk about some of these things and how we can impact the world with what we're doing, even if it's very small. It doesn't have to be financial. You don't have to donate $1,000, $10,000. It could be an hour of your time, like you said. But there's so many different angles here. And the question I'm going to ask you is, if you were in my shoes right now and you would ask yourself a question that you want to share with everyone, what would that question be?
Wow. That's interesting. Okay. So I think that the question would be, what keeps you awake at night? I think that would be a question.
All right. And now give me the answer.
I'll give you the answer. That's a good question. I think what keeps me awake at night, I mentioned to my mom during the pandemic, actually, this. I called her and I was like, crying. I was saying, no, Mom, there's so much pain in the world. And, it feels that it's never enough what we do. Right? Mm-hmm. It's really never enough. And I feel that and the reason why it's never enough is because we don't believe that it's enough what we're doing. Because if each one of us believed that what we're doing was enough, we will do it. And then this little that each one of us will do it will turn into something humongous. And then boom, all of a sudden the world will be a better place. So I think that it's the motivation. I think if I could find the magic chip that would motivate people to do it not only once, but to do it consistently and to believe that what they're doing really is making a difference, so they get excited and inspired to do more. I think that finding that answer is actually what keeps me alive. Figuring out what is the message, what is the way, what is the formula to touch people's heart in a way that giving would be a lifestyle and not just a slogan or just like a one-time thing or just like something temporary, but would be like forever.
And I think you're on your way, man, honestly. And I know you are only 2 years in, but I feel like you're on your way. I feel you have a purpose, you have a mission, you have this passion for this. And anything that I can do to help, I really mean that. I actually am connected to a few nonprofit organizations. Definitely will make introductions. Definitely will check out your platform and maybe donate even more of my time, because I feel like, and people will always ask me, what time you got left, Jeff? Well, it doesn't matter. I'll create it because it's important. And it's not only for me, it's for my kids.
Yeah.
My kids will not benefit from it directly, but they will benefit from a better world, even if it's a better neighborhood, better community, better city. They will benefit from that. Their kids will benefit from that. That's my biggest fear. My biggest fear of my kids is, man, what kind of world are they gonna know?
Yeah.
When I was growing up, I mean, I grew up in Haiti, and we've gone through a lot of turmoil and just very very agitated upbringing, if you will. But I was also around poverty, and there's still poverty around us everywhere. And I consider myself super fortunate that I was able to have the necessities in life, the roof over your head, the food, the water, the parents, the loving parents, the friends and the games and all the other things that so many kids around the world have no access to or don't even can dream about. So I feel fortunate, man, and I feel like it's sad that with what's going on today, there's so many things that are going on today that are not taking into account what world we're living behind. And if I can put an hour or two of my time to contribute to a better place for my kids, even if it's not for me, then I'm happy. And you doing that, I have to thank you a lot for it, and anything I can do to help, I really mean that. We'll definitely be in touch. Speaking of being in touch, please let us know how can we reach you, even though I will put a lot of that information into the notes, but let us know what the best way to reach you is.
Yeah, so you can definitely, check us up on www.sharenest.com, or you can send me a private email. My email is Yosef, so YOSEF.SIGAUD@sharenest.com. And, for the ones that really want to personally talk to me as well, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me on Facebook, and we can chat more from there as well.
Well, Yosef, I thank you again. It's been a pleasure. I learned a lot from you, and you've definitely inspired me, like I said earlier, and hopefully you did the same for the audience. We'll definitely be in touch, and congrats and thank you. That's basically what we all should tell you, and hope that your dreams come true and you continue to push and change the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Jeff. Thank you for the audience for listening to me. I know we spoke for quite a bit, so I hope you didn't get bored about me.
Not at all.
But it's exciting. Hopefully that, somebody will listen to this, or hopefully multiple people, and, would think about doing one more good deed. Just keep that in our mind. We do one more good deed, and then and the next one more good deed, and one more good deed, and all of a sudden we're changing the world quite a bit. So anyway, thank you so much.
One good deed at a time.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Joseph, and we'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Getting Social podcast. If you've made it that far, it means you probably liked it. In that case, leave us a review, subscribe, and please share it with a friend.